I've always been the kind of person who likes to keep to herself. I'm not nosy. I'm not the neighbor who peeks through curtains or listens at the door. I just like feeling safe, especially because I live alone. That's why I had security cameras installed, just simple ones. One at the front, one at the back. Nothing fancy, just enough to keep an eye on things around my house. They only record when they sense motion, and they've given me peace of mind for the last few years. I never expected them to capture anything important. Maybe a raccoon now and then, or a package delivery I forgot about. But last month, they picked up something I can't unsee, no matter how hard I try. It was late. Around 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep, so I got up to make some tea. As I walked into the kitchen, I noticed a notification on my phone. Motion detected at the back camera. I normally ignore those at night. It's almost always the wind or a cat. But for some reason, I opened it this time. What I saw made my stomach turn. There was a man on the screen. Not just any man. It was my next-door neighbor's husband. I recognized him immediately. He's been living there for years. Always said hello when we crossed paths. Always seemed polite. But there he was, sneaking through the alley that runs behind our houses, looking over his shoulder like he didn't want to be seen. I watched as he walked quietly toward the house across the street. That house used to belong to an older couple, but recently, a woman moved in, early 30s, friendly, recently divorced, lives alone. I don't know her well, but we've waved a few times. What caught me off guard was that he didn't go to the front door. He walked around the side and disappeared into the shadows. About a minute later, he reappeared near the side door of her house. She opened it. He slipped inside quickly, and the door shut behind him. I sat there holding my phone, just staring at the screen, trying to make sense of what I saw. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe he was helping her with something. But at 2 a.m.? Through the alley? Using the side door? I didn't want to believe it. It made me feel sick, honestly. I knew his wife. She was kind, always stopped to chat when we both happened to be outside. She once brought me a plate of cookies during the holidays. I didn't want to be part of anything that could hurt her. I told myself it wasn't my business. People do strange things for all kinds of reasons. Maybe there was an explanation, one I didn't understand. And besides, I didn't want to start drama. I've seen how messy things get when people start poking their noses where they don't belong. So, I kept quiet. For the next few days, I tried to forget it. But every time I saw him pull into their driveway like nothing happened, it made my skin crawl. Every time she smiled and waved at me, I felt like I was keeping a secret that wasn't mine to keep. But I still said nothing. I figured as long as no one asked, I wouldn't offer. That changed a week later. I was out watering my plants in the late afternoon when she came over. She looked tired. Not just tired like you've had a long day. Tired like something was weighing her down. She stood there for a minute, then asked if she could talk to me. Of course, I said yes. We sat in my kitchen, just the two of us. She said she had this awful feeling lately, like something wasn't right. Her husband was staying out late, taking phone calls in the garage, acting distant. She tried to ignore it, but it was eating her up inside. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Have your cameras picked up anything strange lately? I froze. I didn't know what to say. Part of me still wanted to lie, to protect her from the truth. But the other part of me, the honest part, knew I couldn't lie to her face. Not when she looked that broken already. So I asked her, quietly, "Do you want me to check?" She nodded. I went to get my phone, heart pounding the entire time. I didn't know it then, but that moment, her sitting in my kitchen, waiting for me to bring her the truth, was going to change everything. Not just for her, but for me too. I walked back into the kitchen holding my phone like it was a bomb. She was still sitting there, nervously tapping her fingers on the edge of her coffee mug. She didn't look up when I sat down. I could tell she was bracing herself, hoping for one answer but maybe expecting another. "I checked the footage," I said softly. Her eyes met mine, and I could see the fear already sitting there, like she knew what was coming. "It's from last week," I added. "Around 2 in the morning. I saw him go into the house across the street." She blinked a few times, confused. "What do you mean? Like he knocked on her door?" I shook my head. "No. He came through the alley, went around to the side door. She let him in." She stared at me for a few seconds like her brain was trying to catch up with what her ears just heard. I handed her the phone and played the clip. We both watched it in silence. No sound, just grainy night vision footage of her husband sneaking down the alley like a teenager breaking curfew. When the clip ended, she didn't say a word. She just kept staring at the screen. Then she put the phone down gently on the table and covered her face with her hands. And then, she broke. Sobs poured out of her so heavy and painful, I felt like I was intruding on something sacred. I didn't know what to do, so I sat there with her, quietly, until she could breathe again. She kept saying, "I knew it. I knew it," over and over like it was the only thing keeping her from completely falling apart. I offered her tissues. I offered her water. But mostly, I just listened. She told me she'd been feeling it for months, that something was off. He stopped asking her about her day. He started guarding his phone like it had national secrets in it. He came home smelling like cologne she didn't recognize. She tried to brush it off, but it got harder and harder. And now, here it was. Proof. Not a rumor. Not a hunch. Video proof. "I feel stupid," she said at one point, wiping her eyes. I let him convince me I was paranoid. "You're not stupid," I told her. "You just trusted him. That's what people do in a marriage." She stayed a little while longer, mostly in silence. I think she just needed to sit somewhere that wasn't her house. Somewhere she could fall apart without having to pretend she was okay. Eventually, she stood up and thanked me. She hugged me tight, so tight I could feel her shaking. And then she left, holding her phone like it was made of glass. I closed the door and leaned against it, heart heavy. I didn't feel good about what I'd done. It wasn't satisfying. It wasn't some righteous moment where I exposed the villain and felt proud. It just felt sad. Like watching something break that you knew had been fragile for a long time. I thought that would be the end of it. I told the truth, she saw it, and whatever happened next was her decision. But I was wrong. 2 days later, he came to my door. I knew it was him before I even opened it. I could feel the tension in the air, like a storm was brewing. When I answered, he didn't waste time. "You had no right to show her that," he said. "No hello, no how are you, just anger." I stayed calm. She asked me if I saw anything. I didn't volunteer it. She came to me. He scoffed. "You should have minded your own damn business." I wanted to remind him that sneaking around alleys at 2 a.m. wasn't exactly minding his business either, but I held my tongue. He was clearly angry, and I didn't want things to escalate. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "I talked to a lawyer. You recorded me without my permission. That's illegal. I could sue you for that." I blinked. "You were outside. The cameras are on my property. It's not like I planted a mic in your house." He stepped closer, and for a second, I wondered if he was going to try and intimidate me physically. "You ruined my marriage," he said. "No," I replied quietly. "You did that. I just pressed play." He stood there for a moment, breathing hard. Then he shook his head and walked away. I closed the door and locked it. I thought the worst was over. But now, I had a new weight to carry. Not just the guilt of showing her the video, but the fear of what he might do next. After that night, I couldn't relax in my own home. I kept checking the locks twice. Sometimes, I even left the porch light on all night, just in case. It wasn't that I thought he'd do something drastic, but you never really know what someone's capable of when their life falls apart, and they want someone to blame. I'd never seen that side of him before. He used to be the friendly neighbor, the guy who waved while mowing the lawn, helped people jump their car batteries, offered to carry groceries if he saw you struggling. But now, that version of him was gone. Replaced by someone cold. Angry. Vengeful. For the next few days, I avoided going outside unless I absolutely had to. I didn't want to bump into him. I didn't even want to walk past his house. I hated that I felt like I had to hide. I had done what she asked. I hadn't gone snooping or gossiping. I had just told the truth. So why did I feel like I was the one being watched now? Then one evening, I came home and saw something that made my stomach drop. A note taped to my front door. It was written in messy, rushed handwriting. It said, "Stay out of other people's marriages. You're not innocent either. Don't think I won't take this further." There was no signature. But I didn't need one. I stood on my porch, heart pounding, hands shaking, wondering what take this further even meant. Was he serious about a lawsuit? Was he going to show up at my job? Spread rumors about me? Suddenly, something that started with one honest conversation felt like it had turned into a nightmare. I went inside, locked every door, and sat down at the kitchen table. I held the note in my hands, reading it over and over. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being punished for doing the right thing. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I saw her, his wife, outside loading boxes into her car. She looked tired. Pale. Like she hadn't slept either. I wanted to go say something, offer help, even just check in. But I didn't want to make things worse for her. Or for me. So I just watched quietly from behind the curtain. Then something unexpected happened. Later that afternoon, she knocked on my door. She looked completely drained, like she'd cried so much there was nothing left. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. I know things have gotten crazy, and I'm sorry if he's been giving you a hard time. He's lashing out because he knows he messed up. I invited her in. We sat down like we had before, but this time, there was less pain in her eyes, more clarity. I confronted him, she continued. He tried to deny it at first. Said he was just helping her with something. I laughed in his face. Then he got angry. Told me I was destroying the family. I asked if she was okay. She nodded. I'm leaving. Not just for a night. For good. I'm moving in with my sister for a while until I figure out the next step. She looked down at her hands. It's weird. I always told myself that if he ever cheated, I'd leave immediately. No question. But when it actually happened, part of me wanted to just pretend it didn't. I didn't judge her. I knew how complicated love could be, especially when years are involved. Homes. Kids. History. She wiped her eyes and stood up. You did the right thing. I asked. You answered. I needed to know. Then she hugged me again. This time, it felt like closure. Not pain. After she left, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I knew she'd be okay eventually, but I also knew her life would never be the same. And neither would mine. That evening, a few neighbors started acting strange. I waved at one couple while I was walking to my mailbox, and they just looked away. Another neighbor who usually chatted with me by the fence suddenly had somewhere to be. Word was clearly getting around. I heard later that her husband was telling people I was spying. That I had some weird obsession with their marriage and was trying to stir up drama. A few people believed him. Others didn't. But that's when I realized something important. Even when you do the right thing, people will twist it. They'll rewrite the story to protect themselves or make themselves feel better. And sometimes, doing the right thing costs you. I didn't regret helping her. Not for a second. But I did start to see the difference between being a neighbor and being in the middle of someone's marriage. That line is thinner than I thought. The days that followed felt quiet in a way I didn't expect. Like the kind of quiet that isn't peaceful, just empty. People weren't stopping to chat like they used to. The neighbor kids didn't cut across my lawn anymore. It was like I had become something people looked at but didn't want to talk to. I knew the husband had been talking. Twisting the story. Saying I had been spying, sticking my nose where it didn't belong. I wasn't surprised he was trying to save face, but it still hurt. I hadn't done this to be dramatic. I hadn't gone digging for secrets. I was just trying to be honest when someone I cared about asked me a direct question. One afternoon, I caught two women across the street whispering and looking at my house. One of them said, just loud enough for me to hear, "That's the one who ruined their marriage." Then they both laughed like it was some joke. I stood there, watering my front garden, pretending not to care. But inside, I felt like someone had just dumped ice water on my chest. I wanted to yell, I didn't ruin anything. He did. But I didn't. I just turned off the hose and went inside. I had started to feel like a stranger in my own neighborhood. A place that once felt like home now felt like a stage, where everyone had picked a side. And I wasn't on the winning one. One evening, I went to the local grocery store, and I saw her, his wife. She was in the frozen section, staring blankly at the shelves like she didn't really see anything. I walked over and gave her a soft smile. She smiled back, but it was tired. We chatted for a few minutes. She told me she was still staying with her sister. She said the kids were adjusting, but they asked about their dad every day. She said she didn't know what to tell them yet. They were too young to understand, but old enough to feel something was wrong. I'm just taking it one day at a time, she said. Some days I cry. Some days I yell. Some days I just feel nothing. But I know I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I told her I admired her. That I was proud of her for standing up for herself. She nodded but didn't say anything else. I think she was still trying to believe that for herself. Before we parted ways, she put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't let him scare you. He's angry, but it's not about you. He's just upset he got caught." That stuck with me. That night, I sat in my kitchen and replayed everything. The late-night footage. Her tears. His threats. The cold shoulders from neighbours. The guilt. The confusion. The fear. And I asked myself something I hadn't really asked before. If I could go back, would I still have shown her that footage? The answer came quickly. Yes. 1,000 times, yes. Because even if things were uncomfortable now, even if people whispered, even if I was suddenly the woman who ruined their marriage, at least I could live with myself. At least I knew I didn't lie. At least I didn't look a hurting woman in the eye and pretend I knew nothing. Some people might choose silence to avoid drama. But silence isn't always kind. Sometimes, it's cruel. And when someone is reaching out, desperate for the truth, silence becomes another betrayal. A few days later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer. My heart dropped. I sat down, hands trembling, and opened it. I was scared. I thought maybe he really was going to sue me. I didn't have the money or energy for court. But when I read the letter, it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a lawsuit. It was a warning, basically telling me to stop interfering in his personal affairs and to stop recording him without permission. My stomach turned. He was bluffing. I knew the law well enough to know I hadn't done anything illegal. My cameras were on my property, facing public areas. It wasn't like I had hacked into his house. Still, it was a scare tactic. A way to make me feel like I was in the wrong. I took the letter to a lawyer friend of mine, and she confirmed what I thought. I had done nothing wrong. She told me to save the letter but not to respond. "He wants to scare you," she said. "That's all. Keep living your life." So I did. Slowly, I stopped letting the stares and whispers get to me. I kept working. I kept walking my dog. I kept waving at the few neighbours who still waved back. And most of all, I reminded myself that doing the right thing doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes, it comes with silence. With backlash. With loneliness. But it's still right. And that has to be enough. A couple of weeks had passed since I got that legal warning letter. And even though I'd been told I had nothing to worry about, the feeling of being watched hadn't gone away. I'd walk out to get the mail and feel eyes on me. I'd go to the corner store and people would suddenly go quiet when I walked in. I knew how this neighborhood worked. People liked drama more than they liked facts. They didn't care that he cheated. They cared that someone exposed it. And to them, I was the person who lit the match. One morning, I was pulling weeds in the front yard when a neighbor I used to be friendly with stopped at the edge of my driveway. "You know," she said, arms folded, "some people think you did it on purpose." I looked up, confused. Did what on purpose? Showed her the footage. Like you were trying to stir things up. Some folks think maybe you've got your own issues with men. Or maybe you just like drama. That hit me like a punch to the stomach. My jaw tightened. I stood up, wiping my dirty hands on my jeans. "I didn't go looking for anything," I said calmly. She asked me a direct question. I gave a direct answer. "That's it." She gave me a weird little smirk, then shrugged. Just passing on what I heard. Then she walked away like she hadn't just spit on my front porch with words. I stood there, fuming. Not because people had opinions, that's just human nature. But because no one cared about the actual problem. The man who cheated. The man who snuck out in the middle of the night like a teenager. Somehow, all that got ignored, and I became the issue. But the worst part came the following weekend. There was a block party. One of those small neighborhood get-togethers where everyone brings a dish, the kids run around, and someone starts up a barbecue in their driveway. I debated not going. But a part of me wanted to prove I wasn't hiding. I hadn't done anything wrong, and I wasn't going to act like I had. So I baked a casserole, put on a decent outfit, and walked over. I wish I hadn't. The second I got there, it was like someone had turned down the volume. Conversations dropped. Eyes turned. People gave me those fake half-smiles that don't reach their eyes. I tried to act normal. I said hello to a few people, placed my dish on the table, and grabbed a soda. I stood near the edge of the group, watching the kids play hopscotch, trying to breathe through the awkwardness. That's when he showed up. The husband. He walked in like he hadn't just blown up his own marriage. Laughing, clapping old friends on the back, shaking hands. And worse, people welcomed him. Like nothing had happened. I saw him glance at me. Just for a second. His smile dropped, then came back even bigger as he turned away like I didn't exist. I couldn't believe it. He was still the golden boy in their eyes. Not the guy who snuck through an alley to cheat on his wife. Not the man who tried to silence the truth. No, he was the victim. The one I had spied on. The wife didn't come. I assumed she knew better than to show up and be treated like a problem too. I stayed for 20 minutes. That's all I could take. I grabbed my empty dish, said a few quick goodbyes, and walked home with a knot in my stomach. That night, I sat on my couch, replaying it all again. And for the first time, I let myself cry. I wasn't crying because I regretted telling the truth. I cried because I realized something really painful. Doing the right thing can make you very, very lonely. It's funny. I always thought standing up for what's right would feel noble, strong, brave. But it doesn't. It feels like being left out. It feels like eating lunch alone in a cafeteria full of people who once smiled at you. It feels like walking through your neighborhood and realizing you're now the villain in a story you didn't even write. I wanted someone to just say, thank you. Or that took guts. But no one did. Then, 2 days later, I got a knock on the door. It was the wife. She looked more put together than I'd seen her in weeks. She had on makeup, clean clothes, and was holding a small gift bag. I just wanted to say thank you again, she said. Really? Everyone's been weird, I know. But what you did, it gave me clarity. It gave me truth. She handed me the bag. Inside was a simple candle and a handwritten card. I hugged her. We didn't say much else. We didn't need to. In that moment, I realized, sometimes being right doesn't win you friends, but it does help someone else find their strength. And that, I could live with. After she left, I just sat there for a long time, holding that candle and reading her card over and over again. It was simple, just a few words, but it felt like 1,000 pounds had been lifted off my chest. I wasn't crazy or a troublemaker. I was just someone who told the truth when someone asked for it. And even if no one else appreciated it, she did, and that mattered more than anything. Over the next few weeks, things slowly started to settle. The whispers didn't stop entirely, but they got quieter. People stopped staring as much. A few neighbours even started talking to me again, casually, like nothing had happened. I didn't go out of my way to explain myself anymore. I realized that the people who mattered would understand without needing a full explanation. And the ones who didn't, well, maybe they were never really on my side to begin with. I also noticed that the husband had started spending more time away. His car was missing from the driveway a lot, and when it was there, it was usually late at night. He didn't wave anymore when he drove past my house. Not that I expected him to. He had pretty much burned every bridge, and from what I heard, things hadn't worked out between him and the woman he'd been sneaking off to see. Typical. Meanwhile, the wife, well, she had started to shine again. She didn't move out of the house like many people expected. She stayed. Fixed the garden. Painted the shutters. Started walking her dog every morning with her head held high. It was like she'd found this new strength in herself. And every time I saw her smile, I felt a quiet kind of peace inside me. One afternoon, I ran into her at the store. We chatted for a bit, nothing too deep. Then she said something that stuck with me. You know, the night you showed me that footage. I thought my whole world had ended. But now, I think it actually started that night. I smiled, feeling my throat tighten a bit. I'm really glad you're okay, I told her. I'm more than okay, she said. I'm free. That word, free, kept echoing in my mind the whole drive home. And I realized something. I didn't do what I did because I wanted to ruin someone's life. I did it because someone deserved to live a life that wasn't built on lies. And if I had kept quiet, I would have been part of the lie too. Now, I know some people out there might still judge me. They might think I crossed a line. That I should have stayed out of it. That I was spying. But let me ask you this. If someone came to you, hurting and scared and looking for answers, and you had the answer, would you lie to protect someone who was already doing harm? Or would you tell the truth, even if it meant people turning their backs on you? I didn't expect praise. I didn't expect drama either. But I do know I made the right choice. The footage wasn't something I went looking for. My cameras are there for safety, not spying. And when she asked, I didn't even know what I'd seen. I had to go back and check. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I could have lied. I could have said, no, didn't catch anything. And she probably would have gone on thinking she was just being paranoid. But she wasn't. She was right. And the truth mattered. Looking back, I learned something important. Doing the right thing doesn't always feel good right away. Sometimes, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes, it costs you friends. It makes you question yourself. It makes you wish, for a brief second, that you'd just stayed out of it. But then, over time, the dust settles. The noise fades. And you're left with peace. Real peace. Not the kind that comes from keeping secrets. Not the kind that comes from blending in. But the kind that comes from knowing you helped someone out of a lie, even if it meant putting yourself in the spotlight. These days, I keep to myself a little more. I still have my cameras up. Still mind my business. But I don't regret what happened. Not one bit. And if I had to do it all over again, I'd still show her the footage. Because if we can't be honest with each other, especially when it matters most, then what kind of neighbors are we, really? What kind of people? So no, I'm not the villain. I'm just the one who told the truth. And if that makes me the bad guy in someone's story, I think I'm okay with that. And that's my story. So, what would you have done in my shoes? Would you have shown her the footage? Or stayed quiet and let it be? I really want to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment down below. Let's talk about it. If you like this story or if it made you think, give it a thumbs up, it really helps the channel. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss the next real life story. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.